The Dhammapada is one of the most famous and widely read texts in Buddhism, yet calling it simply a religious book would miss its real purpose. For more than 2,000 years, people from different cultures, languages, and beliefs have continued reading it because it speaks directly to something universal, the human mind. It talks about fear, anger, desire, suffering, peace, self-control, happiness, and freedom. The questions it raises are the same questions people still ask today. Why do we suffer? Why do we repeat the same mistakes? Why does success not always bring happiness? Is it possible to become truly peaceful? Unlike many ancient texts, the Dhammapada is not written as a long story or a philosophical system. It is a collection of short verses and teachings traditionally attributed to the Buddha. Each verse appears simple on the surface but reveals deeper meaning the more someone reflects on it. Some readers finish it in a few hours and feel they understand it. Others return to the same lines for years and discover something new every time. The word Dhammapada is usually translated as the path of truth, the path of the teaching, or verses of the Dharma. In Buddhism, Dharma, or Dhamma in Pali, refers to the truth discovered and taught by the Buddha. It is not merely belief. It is a way of understanding reality. The second part of the word, pada, can mean path, step, or verse. Together, the title suggests a collection of teachings that guide a person toward wisdom. According to Buddhist tradition, the verses of the Dhammapada originated from real situations during the life of the Buddha. Different people approached him with different problems. Some came with grief. Some wanted power. Some struggled with anger. Some feared death. Others wanted enlightenment. Instead of giving one universal lecture, the Buddha responded according to each person's condition. Those responses were remembered and later collected into what became the Dhammapada. One of the reasons this text became so influential is that it begins with an idea that still feels surprisingly modern: everything starts in the mind. One of its most famous teachings says that our experiences are shaped by our thoughts. If someone speaks or acts with a disturbed mind, suffering follows. If someone acts with a peaceful mind, happiness follows. This does not mean thoughts magically create reality. It means the mind influences perception, choices, habits, and eventually the direction of life. Think about everyday experience. Two people can go through the same event and react completely differently. One becomes bitter. The other becomes stronger. The difference is often not the event itself but the way the mind interprets it. The Dhammapada repeatedly returns to this principle: control of the mind is more valuable than control of external circumstances. Another major theme in the Dhammapada is desire. Modern culture constantly encourages people to chase more money, more recognition, more possessions, more experiences. Yet the Dhammapada asks a difficult question: what if endless wanting is itself part of suffering? The Buddha did not teach that people must reject life or become emotionless. Instead, he warned against attachment, the belief that lasting happiness can be obtained from things that constantly change. Wealth changes. Relationships change. Health changes. Reputation changes. Even our own body changes. The Dhammapada compares uncontrolled desire to a vine that keeps growing and wrapping itself around everything. The more someone feeds it, the more demanding it becomes. Desire promises satisfaction but often creates dependence. This does not mean ambition is wrong. It means freedom becomes impossible when happiness depends entirely on external conditions. Another powerful message in the Dhammapada concerns anger. There is a famous teaching that says hatred never ends through hatred. It ends through non-hatred. This sounds idealistic until people think carefully about it. Most conflicts continue because each side believes retaliation will finally create peace. But revenge rarely removes suffering. It usually transfers it. The Dhammapada encourages people to break the chain. This does not mean accepting injustice or becoming passive. It means refusing to allow anger to control decisions. Inner victory is considered greater than defeating another person. One verse compares conquering yourself to winning thousands of battles. In ancient times, military victory represented ultimate power. Yet the text claims mastering greed, fear, pride, and anger is even more difficult. This idea appears again in the discussion of self-discipline. The Dhammapada repeatedly teaches that transformation begins with small actions. People often wait for dramatic change or a moment of inspiration, but according to this teaching, character develops through repeated choices. A person becomes calm through practicing calmness, a person becomes generous through repeated generosity, a person becomes wise through continuous reflection. The text compares life to a craftsman shaping material over time. Nothing appears instantly. One of the most interesting parts of the Dhammapada is how realistic it is about human weakness. It does not assume people become enlightened overnight. It recognizes distraction, laziness, emotional struggle, and confusion. Again and again it reminds readers to return attention to the present moment. Mindfulness is another central idea. Today mindfulness is often treated as a relaxation technique, but in the Dhammapada it has a deeper meaning. Mindfulness means staying awake to reality. It means noticing thoughts before becoming controlled by them. It means observing emotions without immediately obeying them. According to the text, an untrained mind is unstable and difficult to direct. A trained mind becomes a source of freedom. The Dhammapada also speaks frequently about impermanence. Everything changes. Nothing remains exactly the same. This idea can initially sound uncomfortable because people naturally seek stability. Yet the text presents impermanence not as bad news but as liberation. If painful situations change, suffering is not permanent. If emotions change, despair is not permanent. If success changes, pride also becomes less meaningful. Understanding impermanence creates gratitude and balance. Death is another subject the Dhammapada approaches directly, unlike modern culture, which often avoids discussing death. The text treats awareness of mortality as essential wisdom. Remembering that life is temporary changes priorities. Petty arguments become smaller. Endless comparison becomes less important. Appreciation becomes easier. The message is not pessimistic. It is that awareness of death can make life more meaningful. The Dhammapada repeatedly returns to simplicity, not because simplicity is morally superior, but because complexity often distracts people from what truly matters. A person can possess many things and still feel empty. Another can possess little and feel peaceful. According to the text, real wealth is inner stability, wisdom, compassion, freedom from endless craving. These qualities cannot be stolen or lost through external change. Many people assume the Dhammapada is only for monks, but that misunderstanding misses its broad appeal. Its teachings were intended for ordinary human struggles: how to respond to criticism, how to deal with disappointment, how to manage desire, how to remain calm, how to find meaning. That is why people across centuries continue returning to it. Even readers who do not consider themselves Buddhist often find value in its observations. The Dhammapada does not demand blind belief. It repeatedly encourages personal observation. Look at the mind, observe suffering, notice causes, test whether certain actions increase peace or increase confusion. In that sense, the text behaves less like a set of commands and more like a mirror. Perhaps that explains why the Dhammapada survived for so long. Empires disappeared, languages changed, civilizations rose and fell, but people continued experiencing fear, hope, anger, attachment, and the search for peace, and every generation reopened these verses and discovered that the questions had never really changed. The Dhammapada does not promise a perfect life, it promises something quieter and perhaps more valuable. A mind that understands itself, a life lived with awareness, and the possibility that freedom begins not somewhere far away, but in the way we see this very moment. Thanks for watching. Our channel is new and needs your support. In our channel you can find many videos on the history and philosophical teachings of Buddhism. Please subscribe to our channel to support the teachings of Buddha on YouTube.